After 4.5 years away from the octagon, a broken leg, a cancelled fight, and an 18-month anti-doping suspension, Conor McGregor's return is finally upon us. But there's one major challenge awaiting him inside the cage, and it's something no one saw coming. The longest wait in UFC history. McGregor hasn't stepped inside the octagon in over 4.5 years. Let that sink in. In a sport like mixed martial arts, where champions can lose their titles and fade into obscurity within the span of a year, a 4.5-year absence is unprecedented, especially for a fighter of McGregor's stature. The last time we saw McGregor in action was on July 10th, 2021 at UFC 264 against Dustin Poirier. The fight ended in shocking fashion when McGregor's left tibia and fibula snapped clean in the final seconds of round 1. The compound fracture was visible for millions to see on the live broadcast, replayed in agonizing slow motion. Afterward, McGregor underwent surgery with rods and screws inserted, followed by months on crutches and years of intense rehab. That catastrophic injury sidelined McGregor for nearly 3 years before any realistic talk of a return could even begin. During his absence, the UFC has crowned and dethroned multiple champions across different weight classes. Islam Makhachev has dominated lightweight, and Alex Pereira became a dual-division champion. Meanwhile, McGregor's been on the outside, recovering and waiting for the day he could make his comeback. By mid-2024, McGregor's return appeared to be coming together. He was officially booked to fight Michael Chandler at UFC 303 on June 29, 2024, an event set for International Fight Week in Las Vegas. The anticipation was massive, with Chandler having spent over a year calling out McGregor and coaching opposite him on The Ultimate Fighter. The build-up was primed for what could have been the biggest lightweight payday in UFC history. Then, just days before the event, as the card was finalized and tickets were long sold out, McGregor pulled out after suffering a broken toe during training. Dana White confirmed the injury publicly, leading to an overnight reshuffling of the entire card. McGregor was once again back to square one, and any reasonable timeline for his return now pointed to 2025 at the earliest, or perhaps more realistically, deep into 2026. However, that wasn't the only setback McGregor would face. On October 7, 2025, the UFC's in-house anti-doping program, which replaced the previous USADA partnership, announced that McGregor had been handed an 18-month suspension for 3 whereabouts failures. This wasn't a failed drug test, but a failure to provide accurate location information for random out-of-competition testing on 3 separate occasions, a procedural violation, not a substance issue. While the standard penalty for this offense is a full 24 months, McGregor's cooperation and the circumstances surrounding the violations reduced the suspension to 18 months. The suspension, retroactive from September 20th, 2024, will run through March 20th, 2026, less than 4 weeks away, and McGregor hasn't kept quiet about it. Dana White has spoken candidly over the past 2 years about the challenges involved in getting McGregor back into the octagon. While the UFC is eager to see its biggest star return, White has acknowledged the complexities of managing a fighter who has transcended the sport entirely. In one interview on the Championship Rounds podcast, White laid out the unfiltered reality of McGregor's inactivity, highlighting the difficulty of managing a fighter who has reached the stratospheric levels of wealth that McGregor now occupies.
Imagine the plan was for him to be out as long as he's been.
Well, first problem was that he broke that shin bone. He was recovering from that.
That shin bone fracture, as White confirmed plainly, was the primary medical reason McGregor's layoff stretched from what should have been a matter of months into what ultimately became years. But beyond the physical recovery, beyond the surgeries and rehab, and the painstaking process of rebuilding the structural integrity of a leg that had been shattered on live television, White identified a deeper, more fundamental issue, one that had nothing to do with bones, tendons, or surgical hardware.
That was one of the reasons we had it. And the other problem is he's fucking rich.
White was then pressed directly on whether McGregor's wealth presented a practical negotiation issue, whether the UFC could realistically entice a man worth hundreds of millions of dollars to absorb the punishment and risk of stepping inside the cage against another trained fighter.
So are we at a point here where Conor McGregor may never fight for the UFC? Can you say that?
If you had loads of money.
The question hung in the air, and White's answer was as blunt as anything he has ever said on a podcast.
Sitting here right now asking me this question?
No.
No, you would not.
That blunt exchange captured the entire dilemma that arises when a fighter accumulates the kind of fortune McGregor has. Between proper number, 12 whiskey sales, his extensive endorsement deals, and his sprawling business empire under McGregor Sports and Entertainment. The fundamental motivation to train, cut weight, and risk serious physical harm shifts when financial security is no longer an issue. White wasn't being dismissive. He was simply being honest about human nature and how financial security can reshape a person's relationship with pain and sacrifice. Yet even in this candid assessment, White was careful to separate the money conversation from any suggestion that McGregor is a difficult business partner. In the same series of interviews, the UFC president offered one of his most direct endorsements of McGregor's professionalism.
Trying to re-sign him to a longer contract?
Conor McGregor has probably been one of the best business partners we've ever had.
And even when White acknowledged McGregor's occasional tardiness, the praise remained firmly intact.
Doing business with Conor getting Conor to show up on time is a problem.
White continued, specifically addressing the narrative that McGregor's humble origins might have left him unprepared for high-level business dealings.
Conor, as far as the business goes, for a guy, everybody talks about how Conor used to be on the dole and all this stuff. For a guy that was on the dole...
White then delivered the core of his defense, that McGregor's background has never been a liability in their partnership.
Conor McGregor is a very good businessman, and Conor McGregor's always been a great partner to us. There's never any... McGregor has never done anything even remotely close to that. It's the exact opposite. When it's time to dig in and get to work.
White concluded with what may be the single highest compliment he has ever paid any fighter on his roster. So the picture is clear. The UFC wants McGregor back. McGregor wants to return. But the suspension, the cascade of injuries, and the sheer complexity of scheduling a comeback for the biggest star in MMA history have led to a gap now stretching nearly 5 years. The suspension ends on March 20th. The clock is ticking, and as you'll soon see, McGregor has been doing everything in his power to ensure the world knows he is ready. Enter the social media war for a contract. If there's one trait that separates Conor McGregor from nearly every other fighter in combat sports history, it's his mastery of narrative control. McGregor doesn't wait for stories to be written about him. He writes them himself in real time, on the biggest platforms available, daring the media to keep up. And in February 2026, he has wielded that ability with the intensity of someone who knows the finish line is near, and is furious that the final stretch is taking this long. The campaign began in late January 2026, around January 28th and 29th. McGregor flooded his Instagram accounts with training and sparring footage, captioning his posts with declarations that left no room for ambiguity. Camp 100%. We're going in 100%. I'm going into this fight 100%. The footage showed him working extensively with tall sparring partners, specifically sized to mimic welterweight frame opponents, drilling ground control sequences at SBG Ireland in Dublin. The message was unmistakable. This wasn't a retired fighter dabbling in the gym for content. This wasn't an aging star shadowboxing on a yacht for Instagram engagement. This was a man deep in an active, structured, purpose-driven fight camp. The kind of camp you build when you have a date circled on the calendar and an opponent's name written on the whiteboard, even if the rest of the world doesn't know who it is yet. Then, on February 18th, McGregor posted a tweet that ignited the entire combat sports world. I have been offered an opponent and a date, and I accept, waiting on my contract. He deleted the post shortly after, a classic McGregor maneuver, but not before it was screenshotted and reported by MMA Junkie, Full, and every major outlet. The date he was referencing, according to widespread reporting, was the UFC White House card on June 14, 2026, an event tied to America's 251st birthday celebrations, set to take place on the South Lawn of the White House itself. 3 days later, on the evening of February 21st, while a UFC Fight Night was airing live, McGregor struck again. He posted, "It's a no-name up next for me, possibly, folks. And as you know, IDGAF, I accept. Send the contract, lads." Alongside that message was a screenshot of the current UFC welterweight rankings, signaling his return would come at 170 pounds, the same weight class where his cancelled fight against Chandler was booked. That post was also deleted, but the damage was done. USA Today, Yahoo Sports, and Bloody Elbow all ran the story within hours. By Monday, February 23rd, McGregor's patience had visibly frayed. He posted, and once again deleted, the most pointed message yet, day 15 of I accept, send the contract. 15 days of publicly accepting a fight offer without receiving a contract. MMA Fighting called it venting frustration. Bloody Elbow described it as airing grievances with the UFC's pace. The Mirror framed it as a direct message to the promotion. That same day, McGregor posted, "We have many announcements at McGregor Sports and Entertainment. a line that, in the context of active UFC negotiations, read as a signal that official news could be imminent. He followed it with motivational posts, "King McGregor, the last man standing, God has anointed me in the best position," and continued uploading fresh sparring footage with captions like, "Nobody smoother." By February 24th, the very day you're reading this, he posted a cryptic double exclamation mark emoji alongside a photograph, keeping the cycle alive without revealing anything concrete. The pattern is unmistakable. McGregor is running a textbook pressure campaign with surgical precision. He posts a bombshell claim, deletes it before the UFC can respond officially or be forced into a public position, then lets the media cycle amplify it across dozens of outlets and millions of social media impressions. Then, he posts again the next day, incrementally escalating the pressure. Every deleted tweet functions as a controlled detonation, loud enough to generate international headlines and trending topics, but deniable enough to avoid contractual or legal complications. He is negotiating in the public square, weaponizing his 47 million strong social media following. The entire global combat sports media ecosystem is functioning as his personal megaphone. Whether they realize it or not, this may be the most McGregor thing McGregor has ever done, turning the negotiation itself into an event that generates nearly as much attention as the fight will. Dana White, meanwhile, was having none of the theatrics. At the UFC Houston post-fight press conference on February 22nd, White delivered a line that has become his default response every time McGregor takes to social media. If it was done and he accepted, I would announce it. 11 words that cut through every headline, every deleted tweet, every sparring clip. Nothing is official until Dana White says it is official. And as of right now, Dana White has not said it, but White's pushback goes further. He has explicitly ruled out Michael Chandler as McGregor's return opponent, killing a matchup that had been the assumed fight for over 2 years. He has also stated that the UFC has not even begun negotiating specific bouts for the White House card. When asked directly about McGregor headlining the June 14th event, White remained coy and non-committal, declining to confirm or deny anything of substance. The message from the promotion is consistent. Fights will be announced when they are signed, and not 1 second before. The White House, the opponent, and what comes next. Everything in the McGregor return saga is now converging toward a single date that could define the final chapter of one of the most extraordinary careers in combat sports history. The anti-doping suspension officially expires on March 20th, 2026. McGregor re-entered the CSAD testing pool immediately after the suspension was announced, and has been visibly and actively training since, submitting to the random testing required to demonstrate compliance. Once March 20th passes, there will be no regulatory barrier standing between Conor McGregor and a sanctioned bout inside the UFC octagon. The event everyone is watching is the UFC White House card, June 14th, 2026. This is not a standard pay-per-view. This is not even in the same category as the UFC's previous forays into mega events at Madison Square Garden or Abu Dhabi arenas. This is the Ultimate Fighting Championship staging a live, multi-fight card on the South Lawn of the White House as part of America's 250th anniversary celebrations, an event fusing combat sports, politics, and American pageantry in a way never before attempted and likely never to be replicated. Bleacher Report has confirmed the card will feature at least 6 fights. The sheer scale of the production, broadcast from the grounds of the most famous and powerful residence on the planet, demands a headliner capable of matching the moment. There is exactly one name in combat sports with the cultural gravity, mainstream recognition, and sheer spectacle factor to anchor an event of that magnitude in 2026. Conor McGregor. McGregor has said as much himself. He has publicly referred to the White House card as my event, and stated that fighting there would be an honor. His February social media posts, the I accept tweets, the welterweight ranking screenshot, the day 15 countdown, all point toward June 14th as the target date. The timeline aligns perfectly with the suspension lifting. In March, McGregor would have roughly 12 weeks to finalize a full training camp, complete the required CSAD testing, and prepare for what would be the most watched fight event in UFC history. The opponent remains the biggest unknown. McGregor himself has signaled that he does not care who stands across from him. His February 21st post explicitly referenced a no-name opponent, suggesting the UFC may have offered an unranked or low-ranked welterweight, a strategic choice that would protect McGregor from an elite-level challenge in his first fight back after nearly half a decade, while still generating enormous pay-per-view numbers on his name alone. From the UFC's perspective, matching McGregor against a relatively unknown opponent carries its own kind of genius. It allows the promotion to build an entirely new star overnight simply by placing someone across from the most famous fighter on the planet, while minimizing the risk that McGregor suffers a devastating loss in his comeback that could damage both his brand and the UFC's investment in the return narrative. Rumors have circulated around Carlos Prates as a potential potential option, but nothing has been confirmed by either the UFC or McGregor's camp. What has been confirmed is that Michael Chandler, the man who
No lack of communication, not at all. You know where Conor is tonight?
Probably at a bar.
No. He's in New York City for the premiere of Roadhouse.
The tension between McGregor's public readiness and the UFC's silence has fueled anticipation. With his suspension ending on March 20th, the path to a return is clear. The June 14th White House card is set to be a historic event, and McGregor's comeback will be the centerpiece. The UFC's deliberate silence is part of their strategy to maximize the spectacle, with McGregor turning his return into an event of its own. The real question now is, will McGregor defy the odds and prove he's still the king of the octagon? Only time will tell. Stay tuned for the latest updates as this saga unfolds.